I awoke this morning with a tingling skin-crawling headache and a feeling something is about to happen. I called my husband and told him to pick up my daughter and that I thought I was getting a migraine headache. Then I realized what day it was, August 10th. It has been 20 years today that I had had my out-of-body NDE experience. Then I felt a sense of urgency to call my brother to see if he is okay. My experience and journey has left me feeling I have not done enough with my life, but at the same time to go inward and keep my family close. But yet news events play such a huge role in my life. It is a nagging and something is coming feeling. I am going to relive that day 20 years ago. It was a beautiful day except the sun was extra bright. I was playing with my son, Jimmy, who was only 4 years old. His hair was gold and it almost hurt your eyes when the sun was just right on his hair. He took my hand and wanted me to walk down the hill towards the creek next to our house. I had a sleepy feeling and it was very surreal. It was a butterfly on a stick. He was amazed. I still had his hand and I turned to go back up the hill when it felt like I had been shot in the stomach. I do not remember how I got back to the house, but I was crawling on the floor. I had been spotting and had been having occasional chest pains with my pregnancy. They told me I needed bed rest to keep the pregnancy. The bleeding had stopped, however, and they finally found the pregnancy in my uterus. They even thought they saw a heartbeat. I had just been to the hospital the day before and had an ultrasound which finally showed the pregnancy. Everything was perfect. Just the day before, ultrasound was not showing the pregnancy. It was like an ocean wave crashing. Everything was perfect with life. You could live forever. Then crushingly I was faced with the struggle of my life. And it was so unfair to Jimmy. All I was doing was trying to have a brother or sister for my child. How could I be struggling for my life now? I had a woman that was hired to help me with housework and with Jimmy, just for the early part of pregnancy. She called my neighbor, Rose, who was a teacher and had been a nurse before. She always knew who to call and what to do. I got in bed and was freezing and shaking and the pain was constant and intense. I do not know who called, but I remember talking to the nurse at my office and she told me it was indigestion and to go sit on the toilet. I crawled to the bathroom and sat on the commode, but felt like I could not hold my head up or lift my arms, then I could not move my legs. Suddenly I was aware I was back in bed and Rose was standing over me, bothering me to wake up. I could hear her talking to the nurse. She was telling them that I was in shock and something was very wrong. I heard Rose ask me about a robe because I was almost naked. I had taken everything off because of the pain. But I didn't know what a robe was. Then I heard her ordering an ambulance to come as quick as possible to take me to the hospital. Then I remember my husband standing near me and I was on the stretcher being put in the ambulance. I asked about Jimmy and he said Rose had him. I felt relief. On my ambulance ride, I kept feeling that I was riding on top of the ambulance. Then I would suddenly be back on the stretcher in pain. They were very nice but did not seem to be able to help me. As we drove down Peachtree Dulwoody Road, I could see every leaf on the trees that hovered over the ambulance. I was riding on top of the ambulance, again. Then I was suddenly hearing my doctor's voice and she told me to hold on, that I was not going to die. She said she was sorry I was in so much pain but had not seen an ectopic pregnancy before, but gets her patients usually after they have an ectopic. I remember the stretcher hitting the metal doors and people running with me. And then they said I have to look into your uterus. I am sorry this is going to be painful because you are too weak to give you anything. There was pain, excruciating. Then I was in a different room but I was awake and they were cutting me open. The doctor told me they could not give me anesthesia, but they gave me something that would put me on a different plane. I felt and saw them stretching me open but I couldn't move or make a sound. I was screaming internally. I heard them say, "Do you see it?" "No, I can't, but there is a lot of blood. There's another bleeder. There's blood all through her lungs and diaphragm. We have to find it." And then I was above the operating table as if to help them. Then I realized I was at the ceiling. Then it felt like I was being led by a magnet, and I went right through the wall and down the corridor, going right out the front doors of the hospital. How could this be happening? Then I realized I recognized where I was and took the road all the way home. I saw Jimmy with his friend EA, and I went in circles around him and could breathe him in. Suddenly I was sucked into a tunnel, or maybe the sun was evaporating me, but I lost all control and was going backwards through a tunnel. I could see light in different colors in my peripheral vision. I cannot describe the sound. I thought it would never end until it did. I was in space, darkness, and I became aware I had no body but was floating, and yet I could still feel the pain. How could this be? I heard two voices and tried to turn to look at them when I realized they were in a form of glowing lights, very small. They were everywhere around me, but still they were only two beings. I felt their warmth and compassion for me. They were talking and I was hearing without seeing their faces. They were asking each other if she knew. Knew what? I was a little unsettled then. What was I supposed to know? Where was I? Then suddenly they said to stay there, do not move, and they will be right back. I saw them fly up to an enormous building or object satellite and go into what looked like a glass window, and then quickly emerge and head right back to me. They said it was not my time and to stay with the pain, and it was a mistake. Again they asked each other if I knew the answer. They were very busy trying to find an answer, maybe a formula. It was mathematical. They were looking inside of where I store my knowledge. I did not know it. A moment of feeling I needed to learn, and then a flood of information that I do not remember. They cautioned me again not to move. How could I move? I do not have a body. Then I became aware that I was in a primal position like a baby in a womb, and my mouth was open in a scream, but no sound was coming out. I felt connected to earth with cord, and I could see land formations and water and clouds. It was all in black and white with a touch of blue color or gray. I tried to stay with the pain and not to move, but then, just like when I went into the tunnel, I began moving, slow at first then faster, and I was drawn into an area that I could see others. I saw children starving and images of people after war or extreme anguish. It is all so unfair and cruel. I just want to melt or forget who I was. I remember realizing I was just told that it wasn't my time. Yet what was happening to me felt like my life was being sucked out of me, and I was holding on for dear life. I could see Jimmy's face and his golden hair, and we were running through a golden field of wheat. I was faster and he was trying to catch me. Then little by little, he was the only thing I could see, just a circle with his face in it. I was back suddenly into the place where all the unfairness was, and starving people and children, and being pulled through it, and I forgot myself. I became whatever it was. Then I was in total darkness with grey mist around me, floating. Who was I? Where was I? Then, floating in a white robe shimmering in gold, was my mom. She pasted away just 6 months before. There she was, and I did not even believe this could happen. I guess there is a God then if she is with me. She asked me to stay with her in that clingy kind of way. I told her I had to go back to Joe, and she told me I would have a lot of pain. I do not know if she meant in my future or just going back to my body and fighting for my life. She told me to stay and there would be no more pain. I insisted I had to go. She showed me a toddler, a little girl, and said she would be with me in 5 years. I did not know if she meant she, meaning my mom, or my child to be. The toddler was standing reaching into a drawer in a large bedroom. Then I heard myself tell her, "Sorry mom, I have got to run." Then suddenly I was back in a tunnel with such force. It is undesirable, and crash a cold hard metal table. Pain. What was in my mouth? I can't breath. Tears were warm, running from my eyes. I can't breath, voices telling me to breath. I can't. I am trying. I was naked again, and there were lights. I was in an incubator like a newborn baby in my birthday suit, and I was on a breathing machine and then a breathing pump. Finally I quit fighting the man-made breathing and became aware they were breathing for me. Then I felt a warm hand run across my face and run fingers through my hair. I looked around for the nurse. No one was there. It was my mom. Then sleep. I awoke late that night in a hospital room, hooked up to many machines. I saw bags of blood hanging around me. Needles going into my arms and legs giving me blood. The next day my doctor came to see me and said I will be weak for quite a while. I lost a lot of blood, but was never that close to dying. Yeah? Right. I could not speak of what had happened to me. Couple of hours went by, when in walked some doctors training some students. They asked me, what do you remember? You had a journey. I do not remember what I told them, but I was afraid to sleep. Like I would go back and leave this world for good. So I just stayed awake. The nurse asked me if I had a family counselor or minister they could call for me. So I told them to call Henry, family counselor and psychologist. He came that night and let me tell him about my experience. I drew him a picture of what I saw when I saw the two guides, lights, angels, and the picture of the building or place that was too big to see the beginning or the ending of. I could sleep for a while, but everything seemed to change. It is so important to me, but nobody else seemed to how important it was. Life. Grass under your feet, the sense of touching and smelling life, kindness, and to never take for granted anything, especially my child. I was back with Jimmy and nothing was better than that. Within the year when Jimmy started school, I went back to school, too. I should just be smarter. I need to learn as much as I can. 5 years later I had my beautiful little girl, Melanie, just as my mom told me. I have never wanted to be away from my children's sides, but our finances did require me to work. I was miserable, and then my husband and I had a crisis. Then after many years, he became to understand me a little. I am going to do what I want to do. Let me be with my children. Jim is married and Melanie is in high school, both pulling away but not. I still feel them right there and all their magic, and mine, too.